Here is one of a series of talks by spiritual leader Lola McDowell Lee, spanning 2 decades from the early 70s through the 90s. Lola was a Zen Roshi, whose Rinzai lineage included Dr. Henry Platov and renowned Zen master Shigetsu Sasaki. Lola was a religious scholar as well as an ordained Christian minister. While the talks are focused mainly on Zen and Buddhism, Lola drew on many spiritual traditions, including those of Jesus, Plato, Lao Tzu, the Hindu Vedas, Meister Eckhart, and Gurdjieff.
Long time ago in China, a puzzled monk went to see his teacher. And this puzzled monk said to Fuketsu, "You say truth can be expressed without speaking and without keeping silent. How can this be?" And Fuketsu answered, "In southern China, in the spring, when I was only a lad, how the birds sang among the blossoms." How can you say truth without speaking and without keeping silent? This nice state of duality, silence or you speak. Well, now we are wont to say the truth is, like love is. And we may say, well, this is the truth, or I love you, or but of the thing itself, now look within you, of the thing itself, there's no way to say it. When you have this feeling about someone, and you label it love, it is a label and you know it, if you're really looking at that love. So we say saying truth is not the truth. There is no way to say it. But also there's no way to hide it. No. Because truth is not a word, nor is love a word. Words are only symbols thereof, or therefore. But love and truth are not just silences either. They're not something that we usually call silent, that's dead and that's dull. They are some things which are really filled with joy. We look, and we see out there as something that we call visible. Well, it's visible to me. I see you, you're visible to me, But there's also something that is invisible. At the same time, there is the manifest and the unmanifest. At the same moment, right now, when you look at anything, there is a very, let's say deep silence. Let us call it an absorption into oneself, so that there is this silence. Because if you are absorbed into yourself, into your heart, they say, there are no words, and there is a silence. But if you just try to shut up, and then you say, well, this is silence. And then you use words out of that silence, There is not really any silence in them. And then if you use words, they're kind of like dead stones. There's no anything in them. There's not feeling in them or anything. Dead stones. And you can hit somebody over the head with them, which people can do when they argue with one another, they hit each other over the head with words, Yeah. To what end? Yeah. The old expression, a woman convinced against her will is of the same opinion still. And somewhere down the line she'll turn. Yes, indeed. She can't help herself. There hasn't been any conversion because you cannot convert with words. You're just beating them on the head with dull stones. Yeah. It's a quality that you put into the word, And when it is the quality of silence, then the words can become almost luminous. It carries a particular, as they say this day and age, a vibe. So when you speak about words, when you use words about truth and about love, let the very heartbeat of your own life be in them. So then your words are like vehicles of silence. They're great gestures of silence. What they call in the East a mahamudra, a great gesture. And words can be used thusly. And, they speak about the Buddha, he raised an empty hand. And that was his blessing. And this was the great Mahamudra. And the words that such a one would use, they're not ordinary words. They're not, well, you know what I mean. They're still ordinary words, but there's a life in them. And when this life is in a word, you don't find the meaning of the word in the dictionary. You have to go into yourself to find the meaning of the word. See? The words that can be used by someone who knows can be used by you to uncover meanings within yourself. If you listen, if you pay attention, because certainly you must know that if I can use a personal experience along this line, that all these years that I went to see Henry, he didn't sit there in silence with me. He blah, 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 hours of it. Sometimes, to which, you had to pay attention. But something came of those words. Yes, indeed. But, are you paying any attention to what is going on in you when these words drop into your mind? Or are you very busy interpreting these words? Do you see any kind of a reaction? Do you see what is going on with you when you hear certain words? So, we do understand, I think everybody here does, that truth itself cannot be spoken. It cannot be expressed that way. But it can be indicated. You can point to it. And when you point to it with yourself, then the ordinary duality is transcended. The dualities of hot and cold and near and far, movement and non-movement, yes and no, words and silence. And these are dualities. In the Christian Bible, in John, we read that in the beginning there was the Word. And in the Vedas, which is somewhat older by several thousand years, in the Vedas it is written, in the Indian books, that in the beginning there was a silence. There was this eternal silence which brooded over the sea, which was void and dark. It's the Vedas, And then here we come with the Christian Bible, and it says that the Word You know, this light walked on the water. Of course, we do realize that there wasn't this big printed word, you know, walking over the sea, speaking, let there be light. You know, such kind of children we are no longer, I hope. Yeah. You know, but it did say, let there be light. It is so written, you know. And then there was light, and there was life. These are different Bibles, scriptures, and you must know how to interpret them. What happens to you when somebody says some things like this? What happens inside of you? Now, and we also know that the Zen people haven't written any Bible at all. You know, they don't hold much with written scripture. They're more with the indications, you know. This indicates the truth. It might be that if they were forced to, somebody forced him, like they forced Lao Tzu to write a book, you know. He wanted to leave the area in which he was the librarian, you know. He was old, and he was fed up. He was fed up with the corruption and all this sort of thing, and he wanted to go someplace. Maybe he wanted to go someplace and die. I don't know. And so he left, you know. There's a legend that he showed up in Greece. And this is the beginning of the Greek culture. And of course there is another rumor that he went to the Himalayan mountains and he died there. Yeah. But anyway, the emperor didn't want him to go. He knew he had a very precious man here. I mean, the Orient is you know, they're a little different about it than we are. Because like in Japan, was somebody who would be like Lao Tzu, you know, they make him a national treasure. It would not be a bad thing if we did that here too, huh? There's somebody that really knows, that was awakened and, you know, and all and so on, and then they made him a national treasure. Something to, about the religious thing that, you know, we could pay homage to, that it would have a particular place in our heart, which it doesn't today. Anyway, but you know, Lao Tzu in his day was like a national treasure, and the emperor didn't want him to go. So he ordered the guards on the border, you know, not to allow him to leave. Don't let him. And of course they caught him at the border, and finally decided, they settled the whole thing. Lao Tzu would write this book, the Tao Te Ching, then he could pass through. And he wrote the book in 3 days. One of the most read books in the whole world still, after all these centuries, and he wrote it in 3 days, huh? So it is said. Lots of things are said. Yeah. But, and there are those, you know, we're talking about words and silence, there are those who say that in the beginning there was a song. And the truth has been singing its own song all through the ages. Yeah. So we look around and, you know, the singing of the birds, it's a song of truth. Yeah. Can you hear the silence of the trees? It's the silence of the beginning. It's both. Huh? The beginningless beginning. In song, in silence. So life sings, and life is silent. We don't need to divide it, but we do all the time. There is song and there is silence. We divide. You know, we don't really need to create any more duality than we're already wallowing in. No. Existence in itself is not divided. It's one. It is not dual. It's not even relative. It's one. Yeah. You know, but look at us, you know, dividing everything into little pots over here and pots over there. And so we've got some anguish, and we've got some misery, and we also have a song, and we feel so thrilled when we fall in love, you know. At least one person now, you're no longer separate from the whole world. You can drop a little bit of the duality. So the thrill of it, the joy of it. It's so beautiful to be with one person. And if it is so beautiful just to be with one person, how much more will it be to be one with the whole? The whole of it, the all of it, the total of it. The trees and the birds and the clouds and the mountains and the stars. And each other. The world will be entirely different. Has an entirely different quality. Don't you want that? I'll tell you one thing about it, though. You can't control it. The world as it is. So the Zenists try to bring together this highest synthesis. Don't be afraid of speaking, but don't go on speaking if you don't know. Don't just be silent. Just shutting your mouth isn't going to help. You look for yourself, the true silence in you. And if you're silent from within, if you've got this real silence, if you stumble upon this real silence within you, you will see that it's loaded with energy. It's loaded with something, And it's so loaded that it sings. And it's silent. And this you try to share, this singing of the silence. And there are those who go on talking about, they talk about, and they don't really know what they're talking about. And then there are those who try to keep silent, and they don't have it. So the ones who talk and the ones who try to keep silent, they're in the same boat. And then once in a while we come across one who knows, who has really become silent. And in this silence within himself has heard that soundless sound. To go within yourself to hear that soundless sound, because that's the only place you will ever hear it. When you come to look at something like that, like this, the words cannot express it and the silence cannot express it, then we begin to look at the psalmist a little bit, where he says, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight." Let the words of my mouth and the silence of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. That's getting rid of the control of the whole thing, that you're going to maneuver it and manipulate it. Acceptable in thy sight. Yeah. It's a strange thing. We find ourselves in such a contradictory, paradoxical positions or whatever, because we find that life is very profound and we find that life is very trivial. Simultaneously. See, this is very difficult for the mind, because it can't take anything simultaneously. It's got to shoot over here and over here. That's what we do, see? But actually, there really isn't any contradiction. But we have been taught the distinctions between. But the very trivial is profound, and the ordinary is extraordinary. Difficult, Our training is to keep everything nice and divided into good and bad, pure and impure, perfect and imperfect, and holy and unholy. Did you know that the bird singing is divine? that the dog's barking is divine, that the leaf falling from the tree is divine. All those weeds out there, they're divine. Divine weeds. But they are. Huh? And see, we have all these distinctions all the time. So we're never together. How can you be together when you're always trying to divide, something? You're trying to divide yourself in the situation. Yeah? Such a gap that we have made in ourselves. And we've done this so that our lives become trivial. Eating and drinking and sleeping and walking, all trivia. We do it because we have to. And then where are you going to go to find the profound? Which, after all, is what you're seeking. The profundity of this life. You're going to go to church. You're going to go to a temple. You're going to sit there and sing some songs. And then walk out again. And you've done your duty. Then the profound is not much in your life. So we look at the trivia and let them permeate us. If you keep looking at yourself and say, well, I'm trivial, I'm just ordinary, I don't amount to anything, so you condemn yourself. I'm trivial. And then on the other hand, you see something very profound about yourself, which everyone can do, and then the trouble is, the mind grabs it, and right away we're holier than thou. Both are dangerous points on which to hang. To condemn yourself creates an inferiority complex, and it pulls you into a sadness, and it creates a depression. And then how are you going to love yourself? You're so trivial. You're always falling short of your ideal of perfection, so you find yourself in a kind of a hell. And someone comes along and says, but you're lovely. You're beautiful. And you think, well, this is absurd, They are, as the expression goes, they're pulling my leg. This is absurd, After all, how can I be beautiful? I know myself better than they know me, How then can love happen to you if you're so trivial? And if you feel so condemned because of this trivia, you're in hell. And then something happens and you're holier than thou, and again you're in hell. Because to feel superior is to be in hell, and to feel inferior is to be in hell. So now where are you going to stand? If you drop all this division business, all the superiority and all the inferiority, this kind of duality, and just stand there and be. You may be nowhere, but you are being. And you're being yourself, which is neither one of these attitudes. That's the way to have joy and the song in your heart. I sound like a preacher. Terrible. Distinctions are like traps that we're caught in. And a trap doesn't allow freedom. You don't really sing wholeheartedly when you're in a trap. You can't dance with one foot caught in this trap of inferiority and this foot caught in this trap of superiority. You're chained into two traps. And you know what the sinners say? A hair's distinction. And heaven and hell are set apart. Look, it's as plain as the nose on your face. When you look at it from the outside, you're just sitting around there eating. Eating is very trivial. You eat because you're hungry, and you must. If you look at it from the inside, it's very profound. And eating can be something very special. You know, you're in touch all of a sudden with a whole universe. You know? But isn't it a miracle that you can eat bread and that bread turns into blood that becomes your flesh and your bones and your thinking and your feeling? Eating is profound. We've made something very trivial out of it, huh? While you're eating and you're chewing your food, you're creating your body. Unknowingly, unconsciously. And tomorrow, you know, you may paint a picture. And the bread that you ate is becoming the painting. Yeah? And in Christianity, we have this thing, you know, in the Lord's Prayer. You know, give us this day our daily bread. If you understood that, you know, it makes the trivial profound. You know. And to sit there and breathe, you're all sitting there breathing, it's trivial. You don't even pay any attention to it. Who bothers about it? The breathing. But breath is your life. Yeah. You know, different languages have different words for life, which means breath. You know, in the Sanskrit we have the word prana, which is about the breath. The word soul has the meaning of breath. The word psyche is from the breath. God made man and breathed spirit into him. And until that time he was dust. You know? There is an invisible force of energy. Maybe not to everybody invisible, but there is energy that surrounds you, and it enters into you through your breathing. I mean, just because we call this empty space doesn't mean that that's necessarily so. You know, that may just be our eyes and the way they operate. And the day that you die, you will exhale. You know, you give up the ghost. The breath stops. The life that started with an inhalation is now exhaled, and again Adam is Adam, the dust unto dust. For Adam means, you know, red dust. And the breath of God returns to its source. Yeah. You going to return to the source with it or to the dust? There is a legend, a story, huh? We don't know whether it's true or not. It's just a story. Yeah. There was a great master living in India. He was the 27th successor of Buddha. You know, when Buddha, after he had attained his awakening, he passed along, they call it transmission, the transmission outside the scriptures. Now, with no words, you know, and Mahakashapa became his first successor. And then after, down the centuries, you know, from the teacher to the student, from the teacher to the student, this awakening was transmitted. And they call these men, they were men, there wasn't women in them, these men, patriarchs. And there were 28 patriarchs in India. And the 27th of the patriarchs was a man named Pranyatara, or Hanyatara, depending on what country you're in. Pranyatara. And the king, there was a king in the south of India that wanted him to come to court. And he wanted him to come so badly, he himself went to see him. And he bowed down and he touched his feet and he said to this Pranyatara, "Please come to my court and bless us. It has been for so long my desire to listen to some of the sutras being read, the sutras of the Buddha, by a man who is a Buddha himself. Yeah. And he says, I have been waiting. The sutras of the Buddha are so pregnant with meaning, I would like to hear them spoken by one such as you. Oh, yeah. So Pranyatara agreed, and he came to visit the court, and he came with one attendant. And the king was so excited. Oh, he was so thrilled. It was his dream come true. This Buddha, had come to visit him. And, so long he had dreamt of this, to have an enlightened, awakened man in his presence in the palace. And the palace had been decorated, and the town had been decorated, and everybody was celebrating. So Pranyatara and his attendant came, and they sat down very simply before the throne. And the king settled himself back and fixed his robes, Now he's going to listen. And he listened. And as he listened, he became very puzzled. And then he became very bewildered. And not a little confused. Because Pranyatara was sitting there, very silently, not saying a single word, and the attendant was reciting the sutra. This was not the purpose at all. He had wanted to hear this Buddha recite the sutras, And the king thought about it, and he could have found, he said to himself, well, I could find better people than this to recite a sutra than this attendant, He's just an ordinary attendant. He looks after the master. After all, who is he? They use him to do small errands, and he cooks the food, and he washes the clothes. He's an ordinary man. He's not even a scholar. His grammar is faulty. His pronunciation is not exactly as it should be. He's just an ordinary man, and here he is reciting the sutra that I wanted this Buddha to recite. But out of respect, the king remained silent until the attendant had finished reading. And then he said, and he's still got a Buddha sitting in front of him, he can't flail around too much. And then he said, Sir, enlighten me about this. Why did you not recite the sutra? And Pranyatara said, What? I did not recite the sutra? Then what else was I doing the whole time? And the king was even more puzzled because he hadn't said a single word. Well, please explain this to me. I'm ordinary and I'm ignorant and I want to know the ways of the Buddhas. Well, I sat silently, said Pranyatara, breathing in, breathing out. What else is there in life? Breathe, be alert, be aware. When I breathed in, I was aware. When I breathed out, I was aware. It was all awareness. What else does a sutra represent? What else is a sutra? It's awareness. The words are only one way to recite. Breathing with full awareness is another way to recite, and it is a far better way. And thinking that you had been waiting for so long, I thought to myself, why not give him the real thing? So I breathed. Well, now the king, he thought this over for a minute, and now he was thrilled, seeing the compassion of this man, going to give him the real thing. And he became cognizant, retrospectively, that this man had not been silent in an ordinary way. He had seen the king, after all, had seen silent people before. Sometimes he sat in silence himself. But this had been different. See, there was a different quality to it. Not that Pranyatara was doing anything special, like walking on his hands or standing on his head or anything like that. He was just sitting there naturally silent. You watch. You can watch this in yourself. You get a little bit angry. It changes the breathing, changes the rhythm of it. And if you're all full of passion, it changes the breathing. Moods change our breathing. So next time you see yourself getting a little bit angry, try, not disturbing the anger. And then watch what happens with the anger. Our minds, our moods affect our breathing. Therefore, they affect the body. But to affect this breathing is also affecting, in a manner of speaking, the very being of us. Naturally breathing, breathing in the silence, means there is no mood, there is no anger, there is not any greed, there is no jealousy, there is not love, and there is not hate. It's no mood. The Zen, no mind. If you can sit in that, then the breathing changes. And you will see it for what it is. And that's important. Well, anyway, now this king, we're back to him, he remembered in retrospect that something was different. Something was happening. And he knew now that he had missed it. And he says, now I know there was something. I even felt it, but I didn't understand what was happening. I was too concerned about the sutra. You see where your minds are? I was only involved in my thinking. See? Involved with thinking, why were you not reciting the sutra? And got all involved with that, and so I missed. But I am so grateful that you showed yourself. Yourself that is so true and so authentic. And so he presented Pranyatara with a gift. He gave him a diamond, the most valuable stone that he had. And then he said to him, I have 3 sons. With your permission, I would like to call them in, and you can bless them. And so the 3 princes were brought in, and Pranyatara looked at them, and rather than blessing them, the first one came up to him, and he was the eldest, and he was around 15, and Pranyatara showed him this diamond. And this boy looked at the diamond and he said, that's a great stone. It's of the very finest quality. Where did you get it? It's rare. His understanding about the diamond was perfectly true. Then came the second prince, and he's about 10. And he looked at the diamond and he said, it's not only the finest and the best, and being so fine, surely it must belong to my father. How did you get it? And he said further that in order to protect this diamond, you're going to need a great army. Just this little attendant won't do. So again, he had correct understanding about the diamond and about people. And then Pranyatara called the 3rd son. He was only 7. And he looked at the diamond, and then he looked at Pranyatara. And then he started to laugh. And he says, you're trying to make fun of me. Real diamonds are not outside. You, sir, have the real diamond within you. See, I can see it. See? This is just a stone you have in your hand. The real is within you. So, and it is said in this legend that Pranyatara then hugged this little boy, and then turned to the king and he said, "Forgive me, sir, I have not come for you. I came for this boy. I have been searching all over for this boy. This boy has already looked into reality. He will be my successor." Now this boy's name was Bodhitara, which Pranyatara changed to Bodhidharma, he became the 28th patriarch in India, who was the first patriarch of Zen in China, Bodhidharma. That's a legend of how Bodhidharma got into the thing. Interesting, huh? Yeah, interesting, even if it's not true. We don't know whether it is or whether it isn't. With all of these legends, you don't swallow them hook, line, and sinker. You sort of, oh, isn't that interesting? And set it there. You do that with more about life, you'd have a better life. See? A lot of what you believe is true is not true either. From the very beginning, truth is not hidden. It's our eyes that are closed. This little boy saw it right away. Truth is being preached from every tree, from every bird, from every rock. Truth is not hiding anywhere. Wherever we look is truth. It's like the little monk who asked the teacher, "Where should I go to find the truth?" And, the answer is just keep looking in front of your nose, and you will surely find it. Can you keep your attention on the front of your nose? Right here all the time? All the time. You won't get in any trouble. Because you won't be plopping this way or plopping that way. You will be just right here. Think what a nice life you'd have, huh? Whatever there is that we are looking at, it is the truth itself. Huh? But we look in such strange ways. We're looking for other things. And so we miss. And we keep right on missing. Because we're not here. Our interpretations of the truth get in the way. Our interpretations of how we should act get in the way. That God is speaking all the time, and we don't hear, we hear something else. We hear all this noise inside that we call words. We hear according to how we're conditioned, what we want, our moods and our attitudes. How to see the truth. How to see it. You be here now. In this present, huh? Now, do you know that you can't think present? You can think the word present. But the present itself, you can't think it. See, that's the secret. There is this moment of silence. Now, if you think, oh, this is a moment of silence, you've already missed. It's gone. And if you look at something, like all of a sudden you look at a tree and you see something in it and you think, oh, how beautiful. It's already shut itself off. You've covered it over with a word. In this present, there is no mood. In this present, there is no attitude. In this present, you are neither superior nor inferior. In this present, you just are the truth. So stop covering it over. Anyway, there was this puzzled monk. We're down to this thing. It said to Fuketsu, "You say the truth can be expressed without speaking and without keeping silent. How can this be? How can this be? That really throws you when you think about it. Huh? So Fuketsu answered, in southern China, in the spring, when I was only a lad, how the birds sang among the blossoms. Yeah. So, okay, now we start out with this puzzled monk. There's a puzzled monk. From whence cometh the puzzlement? Why are we puzzled? From our dividing mind. Our minds are so divided they can't figure anything out. Yeah. We've got the divisions, and we ask such funny questions with this division, trying to get it back together again. You know, we ask things like, why has God created a world where people die? See, we're dividing life into two parts, life and death. See, actually, it is undivided. There is form and there is formless, not division. But this puzzled monk, and all of his confusion, you know, the master, he's confused. The master has said, you say truth can be expressed without speaking and without keeping silent, you know. This is impossible. It's contradictory. If you say the truth cannot be expressed with words, then that means the truth can be expressed with a silence. But this one says truth cannot be expressed by words and truth cannot be expressed by silence. So how can this truth be expressed? Without speaking, without keeping silent. You know, all this puzzlement he's got in you. You can either do one thing, you know, you can either speak or you can shut up, one or the other. How are you going to do both? And this master denies both. And then he gives the answer. In the spring. In the spring. When the light dawns in you, spring comes, you know, it's a rebirth of nature. In the spring. Okay? Okay, in the spring. When there is this absorption in your inner heart, there is silence. You are absorbed in something within you. There's no words. And this is something you can't go someplace and learn. You don't go out and learn this anywhere. You can practice for it, but you don't go and learn it. You know, it's not any more than the birds go to school to learn how to sing. You know. Spring comes, and they don't ask Mama and Papa, you know, what will I do now? No. When spring comes, it sings in them. What is singing in them? So what this master is saying is that when this absorption is present, you will know how to saying it, without saying it, and without keeping silent. You will know. And you don't stop and think. You know, people, they think all kinds of things. And they come and ask questions about all kinds of things. They come and ask, you know, well, what will happen to my family when I become enlightened? What will happen to my business when I become enlightened? They ask such things. They think such things. Well, I can't really do this because if I became enlightened, what are my poor family going to do? First you become enlightened. Yeah? It has never ever created any problems. Not enlightenment. The way to it, yes. Sometimes because of the way we interpret things and the way we think. But enlightenment itself has never created any problems. Yeah? In southern China, in the spring, when I was only a lad, how the birds sang among the blossoms. Yeah? When I was a lad, when I was young, when I was fresh, when I was innocent. You know? Like Jesus says, become ye as a little child. Become that innocence. See? In the spring, when I was absorbed I was a little lad. I was young and fresh and innocent. I dropped all the conditioning. I dropped the ego. All the dust was wiped from the mirror. And then, how the birds sang among the blossoms. Yeah. Yes, indeed. And now, may the peace and the power that passeth all understanding hold us and keep us in the love of the Christed consciousness while we are seemingly separate one from another. And I do thank you very much for coming.
If you find Lola's talks valuable, more will be posted in weeks to come.